Hello, this is Will Faerber from Art to Ride, and today we're going to do a little update on Barbie. Now, we showed you Barbie when she first came in a couple of months ago to us, and this was a great day because today was the first day she really connected across her back in a lovely way here. As you can see on the lunge line, she's really stretching the neck out. This is the first day she ever really completely relaxed the underside of her neck, and you can see what a nice springy kind of bouncy stride she has. Her neck looks quite a bit longer than it had looked before. If you go back and look at the previous videos of her, you always see that she was kind of looked a little bit like she was running, and there was always a lot of tension in the lower side of her neck. And we can see here from today that that has completely kind of disappeared. So this is the first day she's really gotten all the way there. So it was a great day. We had the camera working. By the way, we're still liking our solo shot for those of you who got those after we found out that the key was always being sure you have the correct video card in it. And it works quite well, so quite happy there. So very happy with what I saw here today. And so when I get what I want, I don't keep going on for very long. Once again, this is the first day the horse ever gave me a trot like that and really stretched into it and really swung through as completely as she's doing here. So these are the days that we really look for. Once again, there isn't anything you can do other than work towards getting them connected until they do. Now, that is, and the steps that we take in order to do that. But to try to do much else than that before that happens, you're really not going to do anything. The horse is not going to be rideable until the flow of energy can flow through the body of the horse. And as long as the horse still has the brakes on, that's not happening. So once they really release that underside of the neck, which is always that first sign of getting them to just really begin to swing, and we see how this way too. But what you'll notice also when horses are working over their backs, how quickly the hind leg comes off the ground. They don't get left way behind the body of the horse, as you'll see so many horses doing today, especially in the upper levels of dressage, sadly. But see how she's completely relaxed that whole neck into that stretch now. This is at least a foot more neck than we've ever seen out of this horse before today. And once again, look how nice and slow. It is slowed down, but really swinging nicely under the body. The hocks are giving me that action that we're always looking for, that where they're going around like a bicycle being pedaled. We see that round action in the hock. So this is a fantastic day, and as I said, the day that we're always looking for. Once we get this to start happening, then we can really start to ride a horse and train it. But until they start to really get over their backs and move correctly, everything that we do has to be aimed at getting that to happen, because nothing else is going to happen correctly. No horse is ever going to bend, for instance, until it gets over its back. And once it does, as you see with this one, is bending pretty nicely on the circle here this morning because she's able to do it. That's the only trick about bending horses. And remember, once again, when we talk about the bend, we're talking about the middle of the back, not at the neck and shoulder. So many people think bending a horse is cranking the neck to one side or the other. It has very little to do with it. In fact, as soon as you crank a neck to one side or the other, more than, in other words, you try to bend it more than the middle of the back can bend, it actually disengages the horse. So I'm really happy with this big swing in this horse. Now, this horse has been kind of interesting health-wise, that she suddenly grew a very, very long coat, and I guess she'd already been clipped this year. And what we discovered there is that she's only 8 years old, but she already has Cushing's, which was rather interesting, which can be caused by stress, I understand. So I think this horse was a little stressed out before she came here. So she's gone through a few changes in that. So here I am riding her. And once again, sorry about my lens cover today. Our barn cat, I didn't realize, had been walking on our lens there on this camera. So you'll see a little cloudiness from time to time in this picture when the camera hits the sun. But it's always lovely when we get on a horse and they start to be able to flow forward like this one is starting to do. And that's what we want to feel like. We can't begin to sort of alter the frame at all until we just can get that free flow of energy flowing through the horse and stretching into the contact. Now, if you went back and looked also at the older videos of this horse, you see that there's a bit of a dip behind the saddle, but you see that this is much less today than it was a couple of months ago. Now, this is also a horse who had been broken in the third or so vertebra there in the neck. So once again, I have to be very careful when I bring the horse up to see where I can bring it to without it breaking over. So when you see me riding here, I'm always on the weight of the rein. If the horse starts to overbend, I will start to give almost immediately. That is, I'll give the horse more length of rein, but there isn't any time here where I'm holding the horse in any of the positions that you see the horse throughout the entire work. So even just that weight of the rein with a horse like this, when you bring the pole up, is enough that you see right there she starts to crank over a little bit. That is, she starts to bend the neck. Now, even though she's staying here quite nice and actually moving over her back, so that's what we're looking for, but she's still wanting to overflex a little bit, and that's just that issue of having been overflexed in the tendons in the neck there. So that always takes a year or two to heal. As you've heard me say many times, that's the #1 thing I look for when I go out to look for horses to buy. Now, something to note here as you watch me ride along here is that you'll see now with this horse, because of her level, I have my stirrups fairly short because I'm going to want to be able to get up off her back a little bit. And of course, I'm in a jumping saddle. So when you shorten your stirrups quite a bit, as I've done on this horse for this, it's going to shift my seat a little further back in the saddle. So that's something to always remember when you look at yourself, depending on the level of their length of stirrup. So now if I had about 3 or 4 inches more length in my stirrup where I would ride this horse at a later date, then my seat would come more forward in the saddle. So just know that all that affects that. But we can see here she's able to come up into a pretty nice working trot. She's still just slightly little behind the bridle. But my bringing her head and neck up did not affect how the gait at all. She's still moving slowly and deeply underneath herself. So that's what I'm looking for. And she starts to curl a little bit, then I'm going to let her stretch out even more. So I reiterate here, if you have a horse that has a strong back, like this one doesn't have any damage to the back. She hadn't developed kissing spine yet or anything. Now this is the first day I'm able to get stretches like this where she really just lets that neck out in front of her and doesn't change the pace. And that's, of course, exactly what we're looking for. So, in other words, as soon as I can get a horse to stretch all the way down, I'm going to start trying to bring them up in as high as I can. And that's what you see me doing here with this horse today. So that's pretty good for this horse right there. The neck is staying longer, though you can see her wanting to come up and down, being a little confused, and then she drops her head down, then she's a little bit too far behind the bridle again. And you'll see me give out the neck again as soon as she starts to crank a little bit. But the fact that she's able to stay nicely over her back and maintain the same tempo of the gait and not change anything tells me that I'm beginning to get this horse in a good position where everything will just develop now wonderfully. So always remembering that we have to work the horse that we have. And you'll see me later on in this, I'm going to put her owner, Julie, on the horse a minute so she can feel that a little bit on the lunge line. And how nicely she stays up there. I bring the pole up, and she still stays very loose and relaxed in the underside of the neck. So in other words, I'm always trying to do as much as I can with a horse. So I'm always trying to do more higher level movements, if you will, or a higher level of the frame as soon as I can. But if I can't get it, I'm immediately going to let the horse back down again. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. So it's a good thing. You can see how she wants to break that neck over. That's the old break in her neck. So as soon as I start feeling that, then I'm going to start working her towards getting the neck further out again. But once again, notice that the rhythm of the gait has not changed. And if you start to get an eye for horses when they're really in good rhythm, you can just see those diagonal pairs just moving in perfect unison, as you see here. She has a really good rhythm. Legs are really swinging forward at the same time. So that tells me she's connecting over her back very nicely. Nice change there of rhythm, staying up. You can see she's even exhibiting a little bit of lift here for me. So what I have to be careful with a horse like this, I'm never taking any backwards pressure on the reins. All I do is just let my hands come up a little bit to indicate for her to bring the pole up, trying to keep her from breaking over at the third vertebrae. And see how we come back to a nice stretch again. There was no big change in the rhythm. She didn't just immediately just fall onto her forehand or the back end drop out behind when I let her go. Everything is maintaining the same rhythm. That's what I'm looking for. Now you see me do a little canter work with this one today. So I start off sitting in the canter, and I can feel that her back feels a little tight to me. So I'm immediately going to get up and get off her back a little bit because I want that canter to be a little looser and roll over the ground a little bit. And I felt like my back, the weight of my body was stopping that a little bit. So I'm going to just get in 2-point position. And once again, that's why I ride young horses with a little shorter stirrup than I would ride a more advanced horse. So I can let that back roll along underneath me like that in a 2-point position without interfering with it. That way I can work on a canter with a horse whose back is not so strong yet. As I felt sitting, I just felt like she was just tense across her back. She wasn't giving me a nice relaxed platform to sit on. And that's about enough canter, and I bring her right back to the trot, and she maintained that downwards transition pretty well, didn't fall completely apart. It was a little quick for a second, but quickly locked back into that nice rhythmic swing again. And she gives me a little deeper stretch. So once again, if you go back and compare this video with the ones from a month or so ago, or even the ones that I did when Robert came and I did a little session with him riding the horse, you'll see that she's changed quite a bit. You'll see a slower tempo, a more even, steady gait. And now we're going to try the canter in this position. So that was a pretty good transition, good enough, as good as I could expect for her level of training. So I'm not going to do it 15 times. I just want to see that she can swing a little bit. And again, once again, I'm getting off of her back in the 2-point position to give her a chance to swing and get active underneath me and get supple before I sit on it. But she stays really quite nice and uphill throughout all this canter work. Quite nicely balanced. You see how she kind of, there's a little bit of hesitation there in the downwards transition, but not too bad. And is able to come right back into that working position again for me. And then I get a really good stretch all the way down again. So really nice swing in the trot here. She starts to get the neck really out there now. And notice how the deeper I get it now and get the neck to come out from the base of the neck, she doesn't overbend so much. Or overflex the neck, that is. But you can see there's been very little tempo change throughout all of this work with her. So now we're at a horse that now the flow is moving through this horse very nicely. So now we have something to ride and something to build on. So if that foundation is not there, there isn't much else that a person can do with the horse until that is going. In other words, everything we do has to be toward getting the horse working correctly over its back. Then we can think about training it and getting it used to various other things. But if that's not happening, not much else is going to happen that's going to be worth working on. In other words, for me to go now and try to work on flying changes or something else that's out of the context of what we're working on here would just make no sense. Well, nicely she made that transition there in a change of rein. Now I try to sit here just a little bit just to see what her back feels like, and it holds me up pretty nicely. Stays up underneath me and actually got a little deeper, so that was really good. See how nice and slow the trot is going here, how she's reaching deep, stepping well into the track of the front foot as she's going here, and really getting the neck out there. And once again, notice how the balance is not changing much between when I'm letting her all the way out and when I'm trying to bring her up into a more working position. So I simply try to do the best I can. I try to do as much as I can each day with the horse, but I'm never going to try to force it. If it's not there, the horse is simply not physically capable of doing it. When horses have been prepared correctly for the work we're asking them, the work is never difficult. It never needs to deteriorate into a fight with the horse, so to speak, or a battle, or a coercive thing where we're trying to beat the horse into doing something it doesn't want to do. Because that never has a good effect. So I was super happy with this horse today. That was the first day she's really connected. So just to show you here a little bit, Julie was able to get on. She came down today. Now, Julie lives in LA and can only come down a few days every now and then, and hopefully more soon. But these horses are now getting to the point where there's something for her to learn, that is. So now the point is, when we put a student on the back of the horse, just like when we work the horse, we can only teach the student what the horse knows. So today, my goal with the student here is just for her to feel that deeper stretch and that deeper rhythm in the trot so she can just feel that push up through the back. In other words, to educate her that way. For me to turn her loose and do a lot of other things in the horse would just be counterproductive. It would be counterproductive to the training of the horse, and it would just frustrate the rider because the horse doesn't know a whole lot. So we have to keep our lessons to what the two of them are capable of, so to speak. First, what the horse is capable of, and then within the capability range of the rider. And I have to remind everyone, especially if you're an adult beginner coming into this sport or any horse sport, and and you haven't been riding your whole life, it takes 5 years to develop a decent educated seat. When you're a child, it goes by very quickly because kids are just having fun with horses, which is how it should be in the beginning. How it should always be. We should never lose that sense of fun with horses. But once again, we have to work within the context of what the horse can do. I can only teach you what the horse knows how to do. Later on, when you become an educated rider, then you can begin to try to school the horse yourself. But in the beginning, you have to simply learn, in other words, how to steer the car, what the brake pedals mean, these kinds of things. And you really have to work on your balance. And that's the thing for people to remember, is that it takes numerous years to bring your balance to the point. Now, happily, Julie's in very good shape. Many people come to us and they're not in good shape at all. And they expect to get in shape while they're riding a horse. Well, that just never works, folks. You need to be in shape before you ever get on the back of the horse, at least to a reasonable degree. Then you have a reasonable, expectation of success. But if you're coming to riding thinking that's going to be the exercise you do to get in shape, you're going to be sadly disappointed in the result because you won't have a good one and the horse will be miserable carrying you. So anyway, Julie's done a great job here. That's what I wanted her to feel. Really happy with this horse today. This is Will Faerber from Art to Ride. Keep looking.